Now, some of you know I work in the games industry, and over the last 23 years, it's taken me all over the world. And this week, it's taken me to Tokyo, Japan. And whilst there, I got the opportunity to visit Sega's headquarters and do a little retro game shopping. My name's Mike, and this is the Retro Gamer Boy Show. Now, as I was out on business in Tokyo, I got to visit some of the most iconic headquarters of some of the biggest game developers in the world. Here I'm at Bandai Namco, and it has an absolutely fantastic office. They gave me permission to film some of what they had in their lobbies, and you can see it's so well themed. The Pac-Man clock was especially amazing. But probably the best part of the trip for me was getting to visit Sega Sammy. This is Sega's HQ in Tokyo. Now, they allowed me to film just the lobby area, but there were some really cool pieces here from Sega and Sammy's history. We had the Outrun machine, the House of the Dead machine, and this awesome Sega jukebox as well. And they have a special store in there as well where you could buy whatever you wanted. There's some really exclusive things that you could only buy at Sega's 8. Now, while I was there, I also met up with 𝗵𝗺𝗃𝗃. 𝗵𝗵𝗃 was in charge of Sega Europe, and 𝗴𝗺𝗺𝗃𝗃. Now, 𝗴𝗺𝗺𝗃𝗃 was pretty much second in charge of all of Sega. He was in charge of selling all of Sega's consoles from 1984 all the way through to 2001. And those guys shared some absolutely amazing things about Sega, the Sega Mega Drive, including the fact that they have the sales numbers for every single game in every single territory. I'm just trying to convince them to share them with me. I also got the chance to do a little bit of retro gaming shopping as well. Not too much, just an hour, because I had another meeting to go to. So I headed off to Akihabara, where I found Super Potato, my favorite retro gaming store in Tokyo. There are a ton of stores there, but I only had a limited time, so we popped into here. It had a huge selection of games. Everything from the early MSX games all the way up to modern PlayStation 5. Now, of course, the thing that I was most interested in is the Sega Mega Drive, which probably had the smallest selection of games I've ever seen in a retro gaming shop. You can see here on the shelf, there's like maybe 6 games available for it, when compared to the Super Nintendo shelves, which had hundreds and hundreds of games on its shelves. And a lot of these games that we can see for the Sega Mega Drive here are duplicates. So it's not like they had a huge range of Mega Drive games available, and that's probably because the Mega Drive just wasn't that popular in Japan, especially when compared to some of the other consoles that came out, like the Super Nintendo and the Famicom. There was also a small selection of Mega CD games to look at as well, but nothing amazing. The Game Gear collection was probably the biggest Sega collection that I saw in Super Potato, which had some decent games in there, not too many box ones, most of them were loose cartridges. It's fair to say though that Nintendo's consoles are really well represented in any retro gaming shop that you visit in Tokyo. A ton of Famicom games, Super Famicom games, Game Boy games, just absolutely tons and tons of Nintendo stuff there. Now they also did have a small selection of Mega Drives there that you can pick up as well, and a few Box 1. There was a couple of Box Mega Drive 1s, a Mark II Box Mega Drive, and a Mega CD box as well. But nowhere near as much as they've had before. Previous visits to Tokyo and to Super Potato, the shelves were stocked with tons of consoles. And the thing that I noticed most is that a lot of the retro stuff they have is pretty much gone. The shelves used to be stacked floor to ceiling with 3DOs, Mega Drives, Super Nintendos, Famicoms, Famicom disc players. There was just absolutely tons of them, but their stock levels on those consoles have really dropped. Now, whilst the Sega Mega Drive stuff was pretty expensive, the Super Nintendo and Famicom games were really cheap. Now, they're not boxed, they are loose, but if you're a Super Nintendo fan, you love Japanese games, then it's worth taking the trip over there alone to pick up some amazing deals. Games over here that sell for a ton of money, Japanese games over here that sell for a ton of money on the Super Nintendo, were a fraction of the price in Super Potato. Now, Super Potato is 3 floors. The first floor is essentially all of your retro gaming stuff. Second floor is a mixture of retro gaming, but more modern stuff. A lot of PlayStation up there. Didn't actually see any Xbox stuff up there. I'm sure there must have been some Xbox stuff up there, but a lot of PlayStation, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, 4 and 5 were all up on the second floor. The second floor also had a ton of toys in here. You would come in through the door and you've got these huge statues on either side, and there's a ton of plushies and toys, as well as Game & Watch all over the place. And again, a lot of it is Nintendo based. There was some more modern stuff. There was a bit of the MSX up there. There was also some awesome books and magazines that you could get for each of the consoles, except for the Sega Mega Drive. You could even pick up a book on the MSX, but you couldn't find one on the Sega Mega Drive. I love the fact that they've got this cabinet full of Game & Watch. I loved Game & Watch back in the day, and these are all boxed as well. Obviously, we've got a selection of unboxed ones, but to find some of these boxed, if you were going to go and buy these in Europe, they absolutely cost you a fortune. Again, some pretty good deals to be had here. And then the PlayStation selection was huge, especially PlayStation 1. And they were so cheap. If you really wanted to get a good deal on some Japanese PlayStation games, again, a great place to go. Really cheap. Now, of course, there are the expensive ones, and they had some unique things in there, like signed copies of Metal Gear Solid. There was a decent selection of controllers and arcade sticks. Again, a lot less than I've seen in past visits to Tokyo and to Super Potato. Their stock really has reduced down, and there seems to be more modern stuff in the store now. Now, the third floor and the final floor is where they've got their arcade machines. You can buy food here. And there's some magazines as well. There's not much retro gaming to be had up here. This is more like their entertainment section. Now, whilst there isn't much retro gaming up on the third floor, what they do have is this really awesome Game Boy kiosk. I'm really lucky to get to visit so many amazing places and meet such fantastic people along the way. And visiting Tokyo, well, that's one of my most favourite cities in the entire world, and the retro gaming there is just fantastic. Now, I'll cover what I picked up in Japan in another video, and hopefully I'm going to get an opportunity to go out there again this year, and I'm going to take a bigger suitcase with me. Now, if you've enjoyed videos like this, if you like collecting for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, or just playing retro games, then why not consider subscribing? You can do this by clicking on a little button just below this video. We put out brand new retro gaming videos every single Monday, and so that you don't miss one, you can also click on a little bell just below the video. Now, if you can't wait till next Monday, don't worry, because we've got a huge back catalogue of retro gaming videos for you to enjoy, 2 of which you can watch over here.